Did you hear that?
And welcome everyone to Haunting Live podcast this week. Thank you so much for tuning in and following us on social media each and every week right here on our Facebook page, as well as Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And we're also on the podcast apps. If you miss a live show here on Facebook, you can listen at any time. With that, guys, we have a special guest here today. Very interesting lady. Looking forward to speaking with her today. Her name is Julie, and she's of Pet Stereo, a pet communicator. So we're going to talk about pets today, what they see, what they talk about, and also what they deal with in the paranormal side of things as a connection to the show here today. So with that, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. And yeah, let's get right to the guest today and welcome in Julie.
Hi.
Hi, Julie. How are you doing?
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us here on Haunting Live podcast today for talking about pets today.
You're welcome.
No, it might be a different kind of topic for you to cover, but there is a connection to pets in the paranormal field. It's said that they can see spirits and communicate with the other side, see things that we can't. So I thought this would be an awesome opportunity for you to tell us about what you do and how pets are involved in that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's start at the beginning and just go from there and tell us how you got into what you do.
Great. Thank you. So I, as a child, I had an incident. The only, as far back as I can remember was probably 3 years old. My mom took my sister and I to visit her parents in the Azores. And my grandfather was a farmer, and he had some pigs, and there was one pig in particular that kept talking to me. And so I remember I would hang around the pen all the time, talking to this pig. And I had gotten a little plastic doll on the trip over from Canada. So I was showing the pig my doll, and I was really excited. And he asked me if he could have it. And so I actually reached over and he took it in his mouth, and then he ate it, which I wasn't expecting. So I was kind of upset about that, but anyhow, I didn't realize at the time the pig was being slaughtered, the next day or two for the Christmas feast kind of thing. So it was that was quite difficult for me. So that really affected me, and I kind of sort of went into more of a contracted space with animals after that. I grew up in a family where talking about spirits was normal. My parents, I don't know if it's the culture, it's superstitious. It was at that time anyways, or religious background, I don't know, but we had a lot of incidents. There were a lot of stories. So to me, it was quite normal to hear that kind of thing compared to my friends who, their families didn't talk about that kind of stuff. So, it didn't surprise me at all, to hear that kind of thing. And when I was about 6 or 7, I had what to me was quite real. There was it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up because I felt a presence in the room. And it was what looked to me like a monk from maybe the medieval times. Very peaceful looking, though, coming towards my bed. And all he did was he actually made the sign of the cross on my heart center. And of course, I was, I was a child, so I was terrified, and I guess I screamed, and my parents came in and turned the light on. And everyone told me that I had imagined it, that it was a dream. And so that was quite frustrating, but I just sort of shoved it down and didn't explore that at all. And I think at that point too, I shut down completely, and I didn't see anything or hear anything again for years. And then it was, I guess around the age of 16, I started questioning the religion I was brought up in. And I started reading about Eastern philosophy, and I started a yoga class. I found a Buddhist monk who was willing to teach me how to meditate. So I started going to the temple to meditate and learn that. And then fast forward a few years, I had moved to Vancouver at that time, and I was in a yoga class at a community center, and I met one of my dear friends, Christina. And she, we started a journey together. She was exploring Ayurveda at that time for her own health. And So I was fascinated by it, and I started living that lifestyle as well. And that meant reconnecting with nature, which I hadn't been doing for years. So I started eating breakfast with the ducks in Stanley Park, and I just went from there. So that was sort of my reintroduction, I think, to back to animals and nature. And then I ended up going to Christina's place on Vancouver Island, I guess around 2007. She had, through her own journey, had come up with this beautiful technique for healing called sacred movement. And I went to her place and I spent about a week or two there on a little retreat, and she was just wonderful and took care of me basically. So I was doing sacred movement sessions every day. And there was one in particular where some painful childhood memories were resurfacing that I had, blocked out. And her dog, Jabulani, was such a healer dog and stayed with me the whole time, and actually had her paw, she was a female at that time. She had her paw on me while I was releasing and crying and going through this technique. So that made me stop and go, wow, like, she's actually connecting with me. She's talking to me, like, this is incredible. So it was coming back. However, it would be years before I would actually go into animal communication in this way. I kept, that need to work with animals in some way, to have them as part of my daily life. It was there, but I tried so many different things. I studied a vet assistant program. I studied homeopathy with the intention to specialize in animals. I volunteered at animal hospitals, wildlife sanctuaries. I did all these different things, but none of it felt quite right, like 100%, like, yeah, now I'm going to put my energy into this. Until my cat Sam, he was acting strangely. This was around 2014. He was acting strangely, and then my other cat Maggie was starting to have a lot of behavioral issues. And so I remembered that years ago I had consulted an animal communicator for my cat Moksha and Pablo, and I thought, okay, I think I need to learn how to do this myself. Like, I need to go back into that. I need to open that up because it's in there, but I need to open it up. So I looked for courses, and I'm in Ottawa. And so the only thing coming up was in July, and I had to work that month. There was no way I could go during the week for a course. I did another search, and Sheila Tricarton came up. She was in Cookstown, and it was a weekend course. And I said, oh my God, that's perfect. And then the other omen was that my partner comes from Cookstown. And I said, did you know this woman was doing this in Cookstown? And he said, no, I had no idea. So I took that as a sign, and I signed up and I did her training, and haven't looked back since. And that was the perfect fit for me. So that's how I got into it.
That's a weird connection because we had Sheila recently on our show here as well, which is kind of interesting. And
Yeah.
she's wonderful to talk to. She has a lot of interesting stories as well. She did her journey too. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
What was it for you like when you actually started hearing the animals actually talk to you? Like, what was that experience like, and how did they sound?
Well, when I was a child, I didn't question it. It was like talking, like I was standing there talking to a friend. But now as an adult, and when I went and did the training and had to go through case studies and bring that out again, there was a lot of the mind getting in the way. And is this me? Is this my voice? Is it really happening? And it's been such an incredible experience, learning about self-trust, and acknowledging that we all have this, myself included. We have this intuition, we have this spirit inside, and that's what's working in a communication. So it's been a lot of that, and now I don't question. I get the most bizarre things, and I note them, and most of the time they make sense after. So it's just, you just get the validation until your guides are like, did you get enough now? Are you okay with this now? And you just start to trust. Yeah.
Is it sort of like guides and meditation? When you sort of communicate with your guides, there's a difference between it being a voice in your head or somebody actually communicating with you in your head. Is it sort of that way when you know your guide's talking to you?
Yeah, I have this thing where I get my solar plexus, or sometimes my right thumb will move, and I know that's not me. That's when I know that I'm getting that it's that channel, that it's coming through that channel, that it's not from my mind. The other thing is in a lot of readings, and I don't know if I'll be able to think of an example, but um, I actually I take notes if I'm not if the person's not on the phone or on Zoom with me, and the language that the animals use, like sometimes the words, vocabulary, they're not words I would ever use. Some of them are really old-fashioned words, and I don't speak that way. Some of them are words that I know what they mean. Sometimes some come up I don't know what they mean, and then I have to look it up. But they're words that I just would not normally use, and so then I know, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I have a good connection with this animal. Yeah.
A lot of people too might wonder, what do they sound like? Do they have their own personalities? Do they have like a tone to them or anything?
Definitely. It's coming up right away is my own cat, Wolfie. He's kind of a badass cat. He's this fluff ball, but his attitude is he's kind of a tough, masculine kind of cat. And when yeah, in readings he swears a lot, and he's just very direct and to the point. And again, not like how I would speak. And what also comes to mind is one reading I did with a pig. She is in the U.S. on a woman's farm. It's not a sanctuary, just it's her own property, and she just takes care of. She doesn't. She's not farming. But this pig, she was just so beautiful, and the most. I remember after I hung up the phone, all I could think of was like, that was the most engaging conversation I've probably had in years, and I felt like I had been talking to a human, and very feminine, very, very feminine. She was like, she showed me that she was a little girl at one point. She showed me this beautiful pink chiffon dress, and it looked like down in the South or something, and just all these details and classical music playing, and it was incredible. And that her personality was so dainty and feminine. I was just blown away. Yeah.
Now, you were mentioning too earlier, as we were talking prior to coming on air today, that they can reincarnate. So once a spirit passes, does that come back and talk? Do they talk about their past experiences with you?
Yeah, so I usually wait after, if the client contacts me, I usually wait about a week at least to let them transition, and then yeah, I ask them, permission, and I've never had a no. So they use different ways to describe their state of being at that time, but it's always the energy and the feeling of it is just beautiful. It's just, you can't even really give words to it, but it's just such a beautiful, peaceful feeling. And yeah, they all remember their lives, as Sparky or whatever, um, and they always have messages for their people, and a lot of them are there. Some of them say they're not reincarnating; they want to just be there to be like guides. Others are coming back. Like this leads into another story about Christina, my friend, and her dog Jabulani, which is significant. She's actually writing a book about this now. Jabulani passed away. This was the healer dog. She passed away, I guess it was 2017. And in 2018, so after she passed away, I did a reading after. I did a reading before and I did a reading after. And Christina had asked me to please tell her that they loved her, and could she come to her in her dreams so she could say a proper goodbye. And she said, no need, I'm coming right back. And so I got details about it. I said, well, what's going on? And she told me, like, I'm coming back. She gave me a month, I think it was February to March 2018 timeframe. She said, what kind of animal she was coming back as. It was going to be a dog, same type of breed, Labradoodle. She gave me the color. And then I said, well, how will she know it's you? And she said, how will she know how to find you? That's typically what I have to ask them. And then she said, oh, don't worry, it's going to fall in her lap. And sure enough, just before that, a few months before that, she overheard someone in line somewhere talking about this woman, a breeder who had Labradoodle puppies coming, and it just went from there. And in the reading, Jabulani said she wanted her name again, and that she was coming back as a male this time to experience that type of life. And she said she would be Black. And as it turned out, I believe he now was the only Black puppy of that litter that my friend was drawn to. She went to visit him after he was born, and just to meet him. And she had one of the former Jabulani's old toys in her pocket. She brought it out, and he immediately grabbed hold of it and took it and wouldn't let it go. There was this recognition, and it still brings shivers to me. Like, it was, and that's just part of the story. I mean, she's writing a whole book about the what we would call coincidences. So yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it really is interesting how those connections work. I think all those things are guides, and if your pet comes back as a guide for you, those all have connections in that way. Let's switch topics a little bit and talk about sort of what you do for your clients day to day. So, when a client comes to you for the pet communication service, what's the most common types of questions, and what do you sort of deal with them mostly for day to day?
So most of the time it's for cats, dogs, and horses. And of the three, probably the most common, it's probably equal cats and dogs. And then once in a while, like I said, I've communicated with a pig and rabbit, but most of the time it's those three. So with horses, it seems to always be the same. There's training issues involved, or health issues, but mostly it's training. With dogs, it's health issues or behavioral. So they're barking a lot, or they're either aggressive with other dogs or they're petrified. That seems to be a common theme I see. With cats, lots health issues, and then sometimes behavioral, so litter box issues, or not, fighting. If it's a multi-pet household, there's fighting going on, that kind of dynamic. So those seem to be the major ones. I have these exceptions though, like one of my clients, her cat, every time we do a reading, it's like he's taking her from one level of her spiritual development to the next. Like, he's like, okay, good, you passed that one, let's go to the next. And the topics that come up are just crazy. And it's all, she has to go away and do homework. And he's fascinating. The last time was, he kept meowing and meowing in the basement where the litter boxes were, and almost acting like he didn't want to use them. And so she called me to do a reading. And so he said, yeah, there's something here that I see, and I'm not comfortable, and I want her to know about it. And so he showed me what looked like a spirit, and I got as much information as I could. And then I said, well, what do you want her to do about it? What does she need to do? Can she just smudge, or is this going to be a little more intense? And he said, yeah, we need some good clearing here, but she needs to be involved. And so I immediately thought of a friend of mine who does crystal shamanic healing, and he does clearing of places and people. And so I just gave her his name, and I was telling her a little bit about him. And I didn't know this, but she said, well, you'll never guess. She said, for the past month, I keep thinking about shamanic studies, and should I go into that? Sorry, there's Wolfie the best. And she said, so I'm laughing now because he's obviously helping me, giving me that little nudge to, start looking at this. So that's a lot of the kind of thing that comes up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you had your little friend just pass by you there, so that's cool. He wants to be attention as well.
Yes.
What's his name?
That's Wolfie.
Wolfie? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
No worries. So what's other kind of topics do people kind of bring up to you when they want a reading from a pet? A lot of times they say it's behavioral issues and stuff like that, obviously. Do you also get the other side of the coin where people are like, well, my pet has passed on and I want to know how they're doing on the other side, kind of thing? Do you get that as well?
Yes, definitely. So I get that. Not as much as the other ones, but definitely, yeah. And I've had a few clients where the pet has passed since we've started, doing readings together, and then it's just sort of, morphed into that. Yeah. So most people, I think, we all want closure, and if the pet passes quickly or suddenly, then definitely you want that closure. A lot of people feel guilt because they've had the pet euthanized, or they just feel guilt that maybe they didn't do everything they could have, and so they want to know, what their pet thinks about all that, if they can forgive them. And some just want to know, what's it like? Like, what's it like in this other state of being? Are you still here with me? Are you coming back? So that's a big question. Are you coming back? So those are the types of questions that I'll ask and explore, if the animal is willing to share that. And not on the topic of pets who have transitioned, but another big question that I forgot to mention before in other readings: if the pet was from a rescue pet, or they suspect had a bad history, painful history. That's another question a lot of people ask is, can I know what was his life before, what happened to him? And then, we try to see how much is the animal willing to share about that. Most of the time, I'll get details, but most of the time, they sort of just want to move on from that and not dwell on it. So, yeah.
Actually, that's a very good point that you just bring up, because a lot of people do adopt pets from different locations and they want to know sort of the background of what happened before in their previous life or the past life. Um,
Yeah.
so, do you do any type of work with like adoption centers or anything where people actually go to pick up their pet and you can sort of tell them sort of what the history was, or?
I haven't formally. I did approach them early on, and their response was at that time. So this was a few years ago. The response was that some of the pets weren't there long enough for me to be able to do readings in the sense of seeing progression. This was more for behavioral stuff. So that hasn't developed yet. But that's actually, it's funny you bring that up, because that's on my to-do list to sort of start to focus on that as well, to include that. Yeah. I did actually volunteer at the pet adoption center at one of the PetSmarts. So I used to do my readings there, just sort of on the side. Yeah.
No, I just had that connection thought there for a sec that, well, people do probably wonder what's their past life at the pet they're picking up, or they're getting a new pet for their family is, and they might want to know what the past history was for that pet. So
Yeah, no, that's true. That's so true. And that's, like I said, that's a major question that I get asked in readings, especially when they newly adopted or if they start to see issues coming up. Yeah. Yeah.
And also when they do cross over, so do you get a lot of communication from pets or animals that have crossed in the spirit world? Do you know what they're doing after they pass away?
So some of them, they said they're just being, they're just in a state of being, and the feeling they share with me is just of kind of like as if they've merged into the greater ether, for lack of a better word. Some of them have even explained to me that they're in training. They're in training with other groups, to then, it was just last month, I think it was. This dog was in training to then help guide people. He was going to come back, but he was helping from the other side at an energetic level, helping with the global situation at this time with this energy. That's come up a lot in readings with animals in the past year, obviously, as you can imagine. So they're really hard at work, I think, really trying to just surround us with that love and that trust and that connection and that oneness. So other times they're acting as guides for their people, for that family, and other times they're reincarnating. So they're preparing, they're choosing. What I keep getting when I ask that question is they have the choice of, which is how I understand it is for us as well. So like Jabulani, perfect example. Originally said tan sable puppy, and I think female again. And then it was male black. And so then I asked why. Well, because I think I'd like to experience that. And another client, her dog said he'd like to come back as a horse in a couple of years, because he said, I'd like to experience what it's like to be majestic, to be, so big and free, and, that feeling of exhilaration when I'm running. So yeah, so they're all doing different things, and it just depends on what they're focused on at that time. Yeah.
So when pets are sort of still with us, what do they mostly talk about? Like when you do talk to them, what do they talk about? Like what is their intention? A lot of people probably wonder what they talk about day to day, either to us when they're meowing or barking,
Yeah,
or what do they talk to each other about?
yeah. So they I get a lot of like I said, kind of bizarre things like budgetary advice sometimes. Like, I had that come up with one client. His dog was giving him advice. He kept talking about the bank, and I was like, okay, what do you want to say about the bank? Like, what does this mean? Um, and he gave him some advice, and my client was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. That's I've been worrying about that. That's just one couple example that comes to mind. Another thing I find is the meowing, for example, or the barking. I when there's pets together in a home, a lot of times, and I know this from my own home situation, with my cats. I have a female and two male cats, and when they start going at it and there's conflict, to me it's like a little meditation bell going off for me to stop, and I have to think about, okay, how are my partner and I interacting right now or relating to each other these days? What's our communication like? Um, am I present with him? Am I, is there something I need to get off my chest? Is there something I need to communicate? And I find that that comes up in readings for other people as well. I have to be so diplomatic when I speak, though, for other people. But like recently, there was a reading where the person was talking about, so it was a dog, and she was just acting so skittish and nervous, and it just wasn't normal behavior for her. And I asked the woman, I asked the dog first, and she was talking about the woman's boyfriend, and I said, well, is this how are things going? Is there a lot? Do you feel harmony in the home? That kind of thing. And sure enough, and I don't pry for details, but she shared, oh yeah, it's been really tough. We're going through a tough period right now. It's very tense. And so then that made sense to her. And you hope that with that information, that then things can heal and open up again. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess pens are more open and more sensitive to situations than we think they are. Because, they're always there with us, they're there every day, they're paying attention, they know what's going on. But
Yeah.
do you think people should pay more attention to what their pets are doing, like how they're acting? Sometimes people don't actually, how I say, like pay attention to their actions or what they're trying to tell us. Is there a way for people to pay more attention to that?
Yeah, I think well, we just have to like it's simple, but it's so difficult at the same time. It's all about being present. Like you're not going to catch it if you're not present, and I catch myself doing this too. You're busy, you're doing things. Luckily, I have Maggie, my cat. She'll stare at me until I look at her, so I can feel like these eyes on me, and she'll sit there as long as she has to, or she'll vocalize. But I think, yeah, I think they give us cues like, the barking, the vocalizations, I think are one major clue to stop and kind of look around and think. I've just, in the years of doing this, it's like if I had to give it a number, 8 or 9 out of 10 cases, the behavioral stuff or whatever's going on with the pets, they're trying to show us. They're really like mirrors, and so it's really it's hard though. It's hard to look at our own stuff, but I I almost say to be safe, I would look at their behavior, for example, or a health issue. They often give us warnings through their bodies. To look at that and then think, okay, and just take a few moments in this a quiet place and just think, okay, yeah, am I feeling really tense today? Just simple things. I really do feel like they are constantly showing us ourselves. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I feel like we've had pets in the past. I was telling you before we came on air today that we lost our cat a little while ago, and just due to old age, and we do miss him a lot. So, when they do cross over, do they have messages that they try to send to us from the other side? Like, I'm assuming people still wonder that as well. Like when they lose a pet, Are they trying to attract their attention from the other side? Like in the paranormal field, we always say pets can sense spirits a lot easier than we can because they stare at the corner of the room or whatever. Do you feel that they're doing that? Do you feel that they're either seeing other pets or they're seeing spirits and they're trying to communicate to tell us things? Or
Yeah, that's a great question. That's come up in quite a few readings, where one of the pets has transitioned, and there are still pets remaining. That happened here, last year when one of our cats passed away. Yeah, so one of the signs is the cats that are still around are, they see them. And most of the time when I ask, they're interacting. Um, the other thing that comes up a lot in the readings is they're coming to their person in a dream. So they're coming in the dream state until, like, in such an intense way, then the person feels, uh, you know, um, motivated is not the right word, sort of pushed almost, I guess, to look into that somehow. So, and if they're working with me, then that sort of pushes them to have a reading done, and then they have messages for them. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of times it's with the other pets that are in the house, and but that's also another way they get their person to do a reading and to get the information. And then it's interesting that the person at my clients after the reading, they'll say, "Oh my God, like the other cats or the dogs are like everyone's acting calm again, or everyone's back to normal again." So yeah, they'll do whatever, just like human spirits. They'll do whatever they have to do to get our attention until we finally stop and listen or look at what they're trying to tell us to help us with. Yeah.
do you have an example of that by chance from any of your past readings that you've done for your clients where they say, well, my pet sees something and I don't see this? Or do you have any examples or stories of that?
Yeah. So I had, yeah, I had one client, this was a cat again. Not that dogs don't see things too, but it seems to be more prevalent with cats for some reason. Her cat was sort of looking around only this one room. I think it was their bedroom, and going into the bed and just sort of kind of acting like a maniac under the bed. And then he would run into the closet and sort of look sort of afraid. And he'd just be looking around a lot. And then the other cat was sort of like watching him, not reacting the same way, but sort of getting agitated. He was more of a laid back cat. So she's quite sensitive to spirits as well. So she tried to look into it herself, but she couldn't get anything. She just felt like she knew something was off, but she couldn't really get any deeper than that. So we did a reading, and yeah, her cat said that there was the spirit of a man in the house. Like, her house is out in the country, just west of Ottawa. They had been living there for a couple of years, and she said it was a male spirit. He showed me the clothing. It was from back in, I think it maybe like 1800s or early 1900s, and not a bad spirit or anything, but just that must have been his land or something. And he was sort of walking around at night and checking in on them in their beds and everything. And the cat was watching this, and there was another thing going on under the bed, which was why he was sort of going crazy under the bed. That was a different thing altogether. She later explained to me that she experienced that in her previous home and that in her family. So again, another family very sensitive to that kind of stuff. So it just pushed her she said, okay, we need to do a really good clearing. I've been putting this off, and yeah. And so that sort of, she was able to relate to that. Not everybody can, but she was able to. So that was easier to work with. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great that families can connect that way, and
Yeah.
some are open to it and some are not, just the way they are. So,
Yeah.
do you find that sometimes that people are just so closed off that it's sort of the other end of things that they don't want to accept that their animal or their pet is trying to tell them things?
Yeah. I've had some clients that they come to me. I guess there's a part of them that's open because they've contacted me. But they aren't necessarily, at a place where they believe that, like, for example, what I was just talking about, where, your pet might be trying to show you something that you need to, work on in yourself. A lot of, a lot of times with some people, it's they want a behavior changed, and so they're just not looking at it from that perspective. So that's a little more difficult to work with, and I know, and it can be heartbreaking. The pet sort of feels frustrated with that. Um, there was one dog in particular. He just wouldn't stop barking. He was kept in the living room when she went out, but he would bark and bark and bark anytime anybody walked by. But she said even when there's nobody walking by, he's barking. So I asked him, and he said he was petrified. There was he could see the face of a male coming up to the window, and I told her that, and she said there's nobody there, so she couldn't see it. So that was hard. That was obviously hard for her to relate to. And so she said, well, tell him he has to stop. So that was really difficult because he was like, yeah, but it's scaring me. I don't know who that is. So I had to, just sort of reassure him. But that's difficult to work with if the person doesn't believe in that or just isn't open to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of hard to sort of bring a solution to that if somebody's not open to it. But on the
Yeah.
same side, I guess you'll get the same thing too with the pets not open to change either. Like that
That's right.
example that you just gave, like how do you solve an issue where the pet's seeing something that the human can't,
Yeah.
and it's a spirit that's bothering the pet when the human can't see that spirit. So maybe that's the time when you need the our side of things, have an investigator come in and say do a
Yeah.
cleansing or something to help the whole situation.
That's right. That's right. And yeah, that's a great idea. I think also what I've done, like in that particular case, what I did then was I thought, well, I can't help it that way because she's not acknowledging that there might be a spirit there. So I drew on my knowledge and experience with Bach flower essence remedies. I said, oh, well, this is a really good remedy that's calming and it will work on your dog's nervous system, and knowing that it's also going to help the dog with fear, the fear that's so even though that spirit situation may not have been resolved, the way to cope with it, could be helped from that perspective. And hopefully she did get the remedy for her dog, and because from her perspective it would be, oh, this is something I can give him, and maybe that's going to make him calm down. So hopefully that was a win-win. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Speaking of calming energies, you mentioned also that you do another technique on animals to help them calm their energy or anxiety and stuff like that, stress. Do you want to sort of talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so I'm certified in pet Reiki and animal massage, but I also have started. It's sort of a work in progress. It's taking me a while to do more training. I've done a little bit of training in Tellington Touch, which is it's an amazing healing technique for. It was developed for I believe horses originally, and then it works really well with dogs and cats and rabbits. And now it's being used on all animals and on people as well. So just to give you a very brief overview of it, there's a set of movements. The basic one is with just the pad of your finger, and it's just a very light touch, like the amount of pressure you'd put on your eye, basically, on your eyelid. And you're making what looks like, and it ends up looking like a spiral shape. So it's if you think of a clock, you go from 6 all the way around to 6, and then to 9. So you're making 1 1/4 passes, and you're moving up. So just to take a very basic example, like my cat Maggie has a lot of anxiety, so I do this on her every morning. She comes and lies on my chest in the mornings just before I get up. So she's purring, our hearts are connecting, and then I go along her spine. So I just go along one side, and then I sweep up and I go along the other side, and I'll do that maybe 3 or 4 times. And she just melts right into my chest, and I trust that's helping. But there are other strokes as well. I believe, yeah, like I said, there's about 7, I think. They use it for behavioral issues as well, with like horses and dogs. You can use it for training as well. It's used a lot in dog and horse training as well. For people, it's incredible. Like it's for pain relief. It's for calming, headaches, all kinds of things. Like it doesn't replace other therapies. It can be used in combination with. And the beautiful thing is, the premise is that these movements are, what you're doing is you're connecting. So if you have pain or, there's a blockage, there's no energy flow going there. And so the idea is you're sending light to the cell. So it goes right down to the cellular level. You're sending light to the cell so that they can light up again, and then everything connects again. So that's basically what it's based on.
No, sounds interesting. I think that means that you can actually use that in connection with things like Reiki and other things that you use for body healing, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds really interesting. Well, thank you so much for being here, Julie. It's been amazing to talk to you about what you do and your experiences you had in the pet communication field and how that connects to our field, which is the paranormal field. So I think a lot of people will find this interesting. Just before we let you go, is there anything that you've been working on lately or have coming up that you want to sort of talk about?
I guess I'm just continuing to do my readings over Zoom and the phone. I hope to get back to, we don't know when, but I used to do readings at dog agility events. So I hope to get back to that kind of thing. But yeah, my focus now is on the T-Touch actually. So stay tuned for that.
And for people wondering how they get in contact with you for readings or for any pet therapy, what's your website and information?
So the website is petstereo.com. So all one word, petstereo.com. And my email is the same, petstereo@gmail.com.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking your time out to talk about sort of what you do and your history and some of your experiences that you had. I think it's been really insightful here today learning about how pet communication works and some of the experiences you've had. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been great.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Julie sharing some information on pet psychic, pet work, pet communication, and what she does. And it's been very insightful having her on here today on Haunting Live Podcast. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today, taking your time out from your weekend to join us here for Haunting Live this week. We have reached episode number 22 of Season 2 this week. And again, thank our guest for being here today. Hope you enjoyed that talk we had today with her. Just a couple of announcements before we do let you go here today, guys. There's some huge renovation news coming here for Haunting Live Podcast on our website. We're revamping our whole website, and there will be a new format. Hopefully, starting within a couple of weeks, we'll be announcing that new format very shortly on how you can continue watching us here on Haunted Live. But there is going to be some changes coming shortly here for our format for the show. So it's just going to be necessary changes with things changing in the world. Hopefully things like COVID coming to an end, stuff like that. So we're going to be switching the way Haunting Live is broadcasted to you guys. You're still going to get the same great content, just in a different way. So stay tuned for that. We're also going to be revamping our website. We got some great new graphics coming along. We've been working behind the scenes in getting some new looks coming for Haunting Live, especially on our website. So look for those coming up shortly. Like I said, we'll make an announcement later on once we are ready for that. But there are some changes, mostly renovations for the website coming very shortly here for you guys. So otherwise, Ghost of the Queen's tickets are still on sale for this year, which is Halloween weekend, and we still have many spots available if you guys want to come out and check out the Queen's Inn and spend a two-day event with us here at Haunting Live. It's at the Queen's Inn Hotel in Stratford, Ontario, and tickets are $140 for the 2-day weekend. Those are on sale on our website at hauntinglivepodcast.com under the events tab. And also, you guys can check out our merch, which is available through our website as well. We sell things like we use here in the paranormal field for things like cleansing, smudging, crystals, and healing, and different things that we use in the paranormal field. So go check out our merch. We'd appreciate that as well. And again, thank you for following us on social media. We appreciate that. And don't forget, also, we put a post up this week. Next weekend, right here on Haunting Live, we have a double podcast show. Very excited to have this one person coming on Saturday. We're going to be talking about the topic of Sasquatch for those interested in Bigfoot or the paranormal connection. He's going to be a very interesting person to talk to. Looking forward to having him on Saturday, June the 5th at 4 o'clock. And then our regular show is also Sunday at 4 o'clock. So we have a busy weekend next weekend, but it's going to be a double podcast weekend for you guys here. 2 different guests. So with that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Don't forget to like our work and also share our stuff. Liking is good, but sharing is great. So please share as much as possible. We're trying to get things out there a bit more and share everybody's work for everybody here. So thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget also, before we go, Chris does his angel readings on Wednesdays at 8:30. You can get free readings. And also on Saturdays around 3 o'clock. So check those out on our website here, on Facebook as well as YouTube. So thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. Hope you enjoyed our guest, and look forward to our double podcast weekend coming up here next week on June 5th and June the 6th. So with that, guys, take care and stay safe.
Did you hear that?